Hey MGTOWs, this is Vention. I have very good news. MGTOW101 has landed on steemit and D.tube. When he and Chris Cantu and MGTOW expat all got flagged into oblivion and their channels closed, or at least like made unavailable, man, I have missed their content. I managed to find all three of them because I support them on Patreon as well. So when they posted on like Vimeo or whatever other platform, they would like put links on Patreon, and then I was able to find their content. But man, their subscriber base was tiny after that. And this whole flagging war, I'm not sure how much of it was a psyop, like feminists coming in and pretending to be MGTOWs or not, and then just flagging the shit out of their channel. It was a really sad thing to see, and I've missed seeing their regular content. But man, this is just awesome because now MGTOW101 has landed on D.tube, and that's a platform that can't be censored, and that is just so powerful. It's just, I mean, it couldn't have happened at a better time. Because, man, that feminist train wreck who runs YouTube, she is not our friend. And I bet it pisses her off something awful that conservative types and people who are like a little out there as far as like marriage goes, not, MGTOWs like us, and people who speak out against like well, I don't really talk about it much on my channel, but this crazy satanic cult that many of the elites, like the big elite banker types, are in, and basically they appear to use that cult as as sort of a method of control, because everybody who are among their number, they have what we would call FU money, meaning that any of them can pack up their stuff and live comfortably for the rest of their lives on some beach somewhere or doing hobbies or whatever. And in order to wrap all of those people up and keep them working on their project for world domination, they have to have some kind of method of control. And it's my opinion that they have this cult, and they probably film them doing all kinds of unspeakable things, and that would be what they call a control file. And basically, that's one of the reasons why all these elites seem to be so cohesive, and they seem to work together so well to secure control over the world, right? But I digress. But now we have, of course, the internet, which they hate, and we have like social media, which they hate, and it's taken them a while to gain control of social media, like YouTube and Facebook and places like that, and and they make them prominent, and then they silence the voices that they don't agree with, right? But man, I bet it really irritates them that steemit and D.tube are now available, because these are platforms that cannot be silenced. And man, to make it perfect, all we would need is for MGTOW is freedom, John. Man, he should come to steemit and D.tube, because he could then say anything he wants with that big board of truth that he had. That was just so awesome. And he could gain some followers and gain some notoriety, and some people make some pretty decent money, strangely enough. That's not really my primary goal, but like there's this economist that I watch, and he makes about $8 to $15, $20 per video that he posts, and basically he's just, I mean, it's not a huge amount of money, but it's something, and he actually makes a little bit of money. And the more followers you have, of course, the more money you make, but the most important thing is it is, if I understand correctly, it's not able to be censored, at least not yet. They haven't figured it out yet if there's a way. But I mean, if it gets censored, somebody will probably just fork the code for steemit, and then basically create a new service that has that little problem fixed, right? So that is one thing I wanted to cover. MGTOW101 has landed on steemit and YouTube, and he's now posting some of his content. And a couple of these, like, oh sheesh, this one right here, young man's life ruined because a girl lied. This 19-year-old ended up going to jail, and he's a registered sex offender now because this girl lied, and she was 14, and she said she was 17, I think. Man, it was a real travesty, and that would be a real test for me. You know, I don't know if I would be strong enough to keep breathing if I went through what he went through. Man, I'm telling you. But the cool thing was, he had a family that stood by him, his parents, and they had the means to get a lawyer and get a place. He couldn't live in his house where he was living, because there was like a boat launch nearby, and apparently that's like a public park, and sex offenders can't be near a public park. So his family actually managed to get a house for him, put a down payment on him, and on it, and so amazing that his father and his parents had that much financial wiggle room, right? That is one of the reasons why I am just so hyped up on living a frugal life and socking away as much money as you can, because it is just so important, because some kind of catastrophic emergency could roll around, and you could just be obliterated if you don't have enough money to throw at the problem to get yourself out of that problem. Yeah. So anyway, that is one of the things that I wanted to cover, and we're going back to Bitcoins. Earlier, we were like right there after this first spike. Well, it spiked right back down again, and then spiked down again, and then jumped up. Man, the way these whales are splashing around in the Bitcoin economy and the pricing, it's crazy. I just can't predict how these things go. So all I can say is I just buy and hold. And when we're talking about buying and holding, there's a really cool program. In fact, I can't remember what it's called. This is my second phone I'm filming here. Anyway, this is a Bitcoin wallet which has the ability to have multiple different currencies, and you can put it in fiat as well, right? Like regular old dollars. For example, and it's so quick. I was astounded. I loaded the program Monday. I mean, no, Saturday. And then I executed an order to transfer $100 as a test transaction from my bank account to this Bitcoin or this wallet. And now I will be able to, well, whenever if it comes down a little bit more, or whenever I feel like it, I can then flip this $100 here into Bitcoin, right? And then basically once it's in Bitcoin, I could then transfer it to my cold storage and go on with my life. Now, there are other currencies in there, I think like Dash and a few others. Here we go. You can add currencies, various different currencies, by hitting that icon. You can have Bitcoin, this horrendous bee trash that Roger Ver tried to ram down our throats. Then you can have Dash, Dogecoin, Ethereum Classic, Golem, Litecoin, a couple others. And you can also go to various different types of currencies throughout the world, and then basically get out of Bitcoins and go into fiat if you wanted to. If you wanted to like pay the capital gains. I'm assuming this is all going to be visible to the IRS. So if you go to dollars after making some gains in Bitcoin, you'll probably have to record that transaction and then pay your taxes on it. But basically, it is pretty cool, and it's so quick, and it seems to be cheaper than Coinbase by a good margin. So it's both faster and cheaper than Coinbase, and a heck of a lot easier to sign up for. Because man, with Coinbase, I had to it's been a while, but I had to scan my driver's license and do all kinds of crazy stuff. And then it took a while, and then finally I got verified, and it's just and there's a lot to it, all kinds of information. But with this, all you have to do is just sign into your bank, which you have to do in Coinbase anyway, and then basically you're done, and then you can execute a transfer either toward your bank or away from it. So if for example I'm in the Philippines or something, right? If I decide to move overseas after all, I could then liquidate like $1,000 or $1,500 worth of Bitcoin, and then flip it into US dollars, and then it would show up in my checking account, and then I would use my ATM card and cover my expenses that way. So that is pretty darn cool. I mean, it's pretty impressive. It is clearly superior to Coinbase, and Coinbase better look out, because this wallet here is a real threat to their business model. This thing could really grow a lot faster than Coinbase. The only thing Coinbase has on this one here is basically they use segregated witness for the Bitcoin transfers now, finally. Okay, now there was one other thing I wanted to cover. MGTOW101 is now on YouTube. Yeah, I already talked about that, but also Chris Cantu is as well. He just uploaded a video right there, and unfortunately I tried with steemit with D.tube to see it. This is his first video, I think, but it seems to be freezing after the first second or two, so maybe, I'm not sure. So in any case, that's a work in progress. Chris Cantu, MGTOW101 now actually works, but he's got some bugs to work out on his. Man, that would be awesome if MGTOW is Freedom could show up here. That would just rock. He has a a channel on Patreon. I support him on Patreon as well. And he basically, Society for Men's Freedom, it just doesn't have the punch that MGTOW's Freedom had. He's actually trying to be dignified and run some kind of political organization, and honestly, I don't think it's going to have enough traction to accomplish anything. He seems to be going in the direction the MRAs went in the past, trying to make political change rather than just opting out and letting things sort themselves out. But well, I wish him luck, but I don't think he's going to do well. So basically, there's one other thing I wanted to cover. Now that I've covered the what's that Bitcoin wallet called? It is called Abra. There's its icon, a little human figure, sort of, and basically it's right on the App Store. It's not on iOS yet, but it is definitely on Android, and I'm impressed. I think that is really cool. I won't be using Coinbase after this because this one is so much cheaper and so much faster than Coinbase is. So yeah. And I'm not very fond of them anyway, because all the shenanigans they've pulled in the past supporting Bitcoin 2X, I think it's called, amongst other things. Yeah, it's time for them to go. So back to one of the last things I wanted to cover was the economic cycle. I've spoke about this a lot in my earlier videos, and I've been kind of stumped because the economic cycle, some people call it the business cycle, it's basically a situation where you have a recovery from a previous recession. It takes a few years, then you move up in prosperity, then it sort of tops out, and then you start dropping into the next recession, and the whole cycle might take like every 8 years or so, right? But this time around, it's taken longer. It's like 10 years since 2008, and according to the normal timetable, the recession that we're dropping into right now, man, it should have happened back in like 2016, but it just didn't. And I was like standing there like, what the heck? It should be happening, and it just wasn't. And I'm thinking much of what has prevented it from occurring is a lot of Chinese money coming in and buying our treasury bills and buying all kinds of real estate out from under us and pushing the price way up, and buying stocks in the U.S. stock market. And basically, I'm thinking that it's China largely that's responsible for delaying this recession. But it also looks to me like we are dropping into this next recession right now. The Fed's raising interest rates, and now we've got some tariffs coming up, and the stock market's lower now than it was at the beginning of the year, and it looks there's no end in sight on this stock market drop. And when this occurs, and interest rates rise, we're going to see like carnage, guys. The banking conventional financial system is so overinflated, so massively leveraged, that just a little adjustment in the interest rates and this stock market drop, man, it could be enough to just pop the bubble and have this whole thing drop into like a massive bear market. We're talking, and like failing banks, like when banks go bankrupt, and brokerages, like when MF Global went bankrupt, and then we'll have a lot of unemployment, and we're going to have a lot of people losing their houses because they can't afford to maintain their mortgages on their newly lowered benefits, like unemployment or whatever. And we're going to see that's going to push real estate down. And then when the real estate prices drop, because people are like letting it go back to the bank, when that occurs, and the real estate prices drop, then we're going to see like people giving their houses back to the bank because they will suddenly discover that they owe more on the house than the house is worth, right? And then that happened to a lot of my fellow mechanics at where I work. And I know one of them that actually stopped paying on his house and tried to renegotiate, and then just ended up getting it repossessed, and then he went and bought a different house. But that sort of thing puts a tremendous strain on the banking system because they just don't have, they have a certain amount of capitalization in these banks, and if their capitalization drops because these loans become non-functional, then they go bankrupt, right? And then when they go bankrupt, all kinds of bad things can happen. They might even execute bank bail-ins, like where all of our money is basically seized, or some of it is seized because it becomes an asset that the bank has, our deposits, and so basically we could lose our money, right? So basically, whenever we drop into a recession, like in 2008, for example, it gets worse and worse, and the whole thing just continues to plod on, and banks go bankrupt, and people lose their jobs. The houses get repossessed, and basically, then basically it just continues. And when that occurs, real estate goes down, stocks go down. And then they start lowering interest rates, so bonds start going down if you're in like a bond fund or something. And then if the interest rates drop, your bond fund that you have invested in drops in value, right? So you don't want to be in bonds either. So, man, if I were a normal person who didn't understand Bitcoins, I would probably be doing what I could to, like if I owned a second house or something, I would be selling that shit right now. And I would also be getting rid of any stocks that I have, like if I had a 401k, I would get in there and get rid of stocks and go like pure money market or something. Stay away, and then any real estate, I would get rid of that, and then I would just go into cash, as much into cash as I could, because over the next 2 years, cash is going to be king, and of course, gold and silver should do well as well. It usually does when there's real panic in the economy. But I'm thinking, it's my opinion, that a lot of money is going to come blasting into Bitcoins as well, especially since we've made a lot of gains in the stock market recently, not stock market, in Bitcoins recently. I'm of the opinion that a lot of people right now are cashing out on Bitcoin or whatever cryptos they own so that they can pay their blood money to the IRS and then to stay out of jail. And but after April 15th, that's like the usual deadline. Then I'm thinking that we might start seeing some strength in the Bitcoin market. Till then, I'm thinking it's probably going to remain fairly bearish. But man, if I sold my Bitcoins, the IRS would treat me like those rednecks treated those rafters in that movie Deliverance, and it would not be pretty. So I will just remain right where I am, and I think I'll probably continue to accumulate cash till around the 15th of next month, and then I'll probably start buying Bitcoins again. So basically, going into a recession, Right now, I would not be in stocks or real estate. I'm only going to keep this house because I need a place to live. Um, but if you are not into Bitcoins, I would probably load up on silver and possibly some gold. Um, when real estate, or when we have when precious metals go up, silver tends to be more volatile than gold. I mean, its price changes more rapidly, right? For example, the silver or the gold that I owned in the 2008 recession went up 70%, right? Between 2008 and 2011, but my silver went up 260%. And I cashed in half that silver, and that became the down payment on this house, and which I bought in 2012, right? And that's the awesome thing about a recession like this. If you're aware of it, and you can plan for it, you can accumulate cash or precious metals and wait a couple of years into the recession, and you should be able to pick up like real estate or cars or jet skis or stocks, any of that stuff for like maybe half of what you would pay currently, right? So yeah, I would definitely think about that. Okay, but that's just what I see. And plus, there's another problem that we have coming where the Chinese are now creating what they call a petro-yuan, and up until very recently, the US dollar, was the only way you could buy oil in the world, and that's why everybody in the world wanted the US dollar. But now we're going to have the petro-yuan as a competing currency, and people have really gotten pissed off by the people who run our country, and a lot of them are probably going to want to branch out away from the dollar and use the petro-yuan instead. And if that's the case, and I'm certain that will be, we are probably going to see a decline in the dollar and the spending power of the dollar. So foreign goods will be a lot more expensive, and but foreign labor will be more expensive, and maybe that by the end of this recession there might be some manufacturing coming back to the States, which would be a nice change. So so basically I would be aware of that too. The petro-yuan might start causing problems with the value of the dollar, in which case we can expect more expensive gas, more expensive foreign goods. Cell phones are going to be more expensive. None of them are made in the U.S. We might want to hold on to our old cell phones, like I always do, and then basically you might be using that again someday. So, or maybe giving it to a friend whose cell phone blew up or something. So, because foreign goods are going to start to get kind of expensive. It's going to be, I'm thinking the next 2 years is going to be kind of rough. And my motto for this next 2 years is save every penny you can, crank that spending down until it hurts. And if you have a way of not spending any money, don't spend it. Don't just, if you're bored going out to eat or whatever, try to restrain the impulse. If something breaks on your car that you might be able to fix it yourself. Same with everything, because it's every little extra dollar you might have, if your job gets downsized or something, every extra penny you can scrape together could make the difference between getting through a problem gracefully and or really suffering. So so definitely I would like crank that spending down to the minimum and sock away everything you can. So let's see. Yeah, that's the Petro Yuan. I've covered that. Okay, so to reiterate, MGTOW101 has hit D.tube, and I'm very pleased with that. Oh yeah, one more thing I wanted to cover. This, I think there was some kind of civil war between people that that I'm subscribed to, and people I support on Patreon. There's like there was this feud. It was really bizarre. I only caught a little bit from the side, but basically, I mean, several people, all of which I support on Patreon, are like feuding, and it's caused us some casualties, and I hate that, dudes. I really do. But now we might just have a chance to have a platform which will not be utterly at risk at all times. You know, we won't have to watch our every word. You know, like some people are saying, if they say drop the F-bomb or something, their channel could get deleted, right? And it could if enough people flagged enough of their videos. So so this steemit and D.tube, man, it's just what the doctor ordered. That finally we'll have a platform where we can actually say what we want to say again. And that's the way YouTube used to be, but it looks like steemit is like going to be like the new Facebook, and D.tube is probably going to be the new YouTube. And there's also another service which I haven't actually explored yet. It's called D.live, and you can actually do live streaming from there. And apparently you have notifications, and people's cell phones will beep whenever you go live. And I'm not sure, they don't have like what they call, you know, like super chat tipping or anything, but you know, I think it's just it's a work in progress. And I haven't looked at it yet, but I will. I'm not really a live stream guy. So anyway, I will talk to you later. And don't get married.